Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Money Spot podcast, where I'm joined by Andy, CEO and founder of Money. If you'd like to give yourself a little introduction about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hi guys. We founded Money Group. We've got several different parts of the business where we provide financial education and empowerment to people of various shapes and sizes all around the country. Um, that's what we do.
How was it? How was the idea founded? What was the purpose behind the business and why you actually wanted to actually empower people with this financial education that you do?
Yeah, I mean, the business has got roots back to 2011 when we set a company up called Smart Lolly. We went to schools teaching kids in Greater Manchester and Lancashire about money, about debt, about all the things that go with it. And really, if that would have worked properly, if we'd have set it up properly, we might still do today, 10, 15 years on. But it was built with weak foundations, which we've learned over time. It was built relying on schools having a budget, having calendars with spaces. And that isn't what schools have. They have tight budgets and not much space in the calendar.
In terms of, you mentioned about different schools, how was your approach to actually targeting these schools and how did you feel it continuously grew from, as you said, from the previous name that you had all the way into Money Now? And we actually spoke about how you're partner with these massive footballing teams and actually providing education to actual businesses as well. How have you found the growth of that?
Yeah, I think that's been the key really. So when we had Smart Lolly, which probably existed for 2 or 3 years, it was all reliant on schools, and it was reliant on us going in, delivering a workshop in person to 20, 30, 40 kids, and being paid for the work that we'd done. What we've done now with Money is we've set up a much stronger foundation where we help corporate businesses. We work through local councils and funding that councils have specifically for financial literacy. We work with, as you said, sports clubs and large corporations on their welfare or well-being projects to help staff. And then we have the school element is more of a foundation where we try and do that either subsidised or sponsored by corporate partners rather than relying on schools trying to find spare money in their budget. And that's been the biggest shift really. When we launched Money Group, it was all about how do we provide education to every person we come across that's affordable for the structure that they're in.
What have you found has been the most prominent topic that you discuss in your workshops? What's the most powerful message you've actually felt that you've sent across?
I think it gets quite political, finance and money very quickly. I think the minute you start a conversation with somebody, they'll have a polarized view on why we're in the position that we're in. You tend to find people have got very strong opinions on the economy, inflation, whose fault that is, the mini budget, cost of living crisis, energy crisis. So what we've tried to do, one of the webinars and workshops that we deliver fairly regularly is called Cost of Living Crisis. And really, when you leave that workshop, you just leave with a strong understanding of why we are where we are. So you don't necessarily have any new skills, but what you've got is much more context to be able to understand the reason why the country is in the situation it's in. That's probably one of the first things that we find is important is getting everyone to understand why we are here. And it's not one particular event. There's been a number over the last 10, 15, 20 years that have attributed to the situation that we're in. And then the other one really is quite fundamental skills and understanding what products are out there. So an awareness, we have different workshops that we deliver that help people understand what is out there, what can you access, and really trying to be a bit more confident in accessing those services.
Had any feedback on these different courses that you've done and how transformative it has been for people? Because I've certainly been to workshops before, and every time you go out of like a particular one, you'll be learning something new, and it'd be a certain topic that I
Mhm.
didn't know about. That you come out and think, "Wow, I didn't know about that. I need to look into it." Is there any feedback you've had from certain people about stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we try to gather hard data as much as possible. I think it's really important. It's great to have anecdotal, oh, that was great, I learned this, I learned that. That's great to have one-off anecdotal bits of feedback. But one of the things we've really focused on is gathering hard data about the results that we deliver. So we do a pre-training survey, which is only a short 6, 7 question survey. We then do a post-training survey that's the exact same questions, and you rate yourself in each area. So one of the key stats that we ask is about how money confident are you? How confident are you making money decisions? And on average, through all the workshops that we've done, 28% has been the pre-training confidence level, and then 88% has been the post-training confidence level. So, I think it's really important that a company like ours that is an education business is that we monitor the impact we're having on people's confidence and ability.
Why you may be asking people watching why we've actually got a business like Money on our podcast, but it's just truly inspirational because we actually connected through LinkedIn through our LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
page, and the difference between Money and Monito, we try to empower the younger generation, and then we believe as we get older, Money is an excellent platform to you, but basically to enhance your knowledge and just build on the foundations. And what I found particularly inspirational about you is just your mindset and the continuous eagerness to work and just continue to strive to have a more positive societal impact. So my question to you now is just what have you found the biggest challenge has been in this whole journey, not just with Mooney, but maybe if you have any other ventures or anything in the business world?
Um, I would say that not giving up is definitely a trait that people need to get hold of as quickly as possible. And I see, with you guys, with Young Enterprise and the work that you've done and the awards that you've achieved, I think that's incredible. And it won't get any easier for you. I think we've had that discussion that as you enter the world of business, there's more people looking to take more things away from you all the time, and you've just not got to give up. I think if you can find something that you're passionate about, then that becomes easier. I think if you're not passionate about the thing that you're doing, it is easy to give up. It's harder to stay the course. So that's one thing I would say that has been difficult and been a challenge is always striving to keep going, even if you get a setback or a knockback, or if something doesn't quite go according to plan, dust yourself off, be resilient, and crack on.
That very interesting. I believe in that firmly as well. But is there any particular, say, because I have the quote, I've probably banged on about this before, but if you do not ask, you do not get. Is there any particular quote that you like to always refer back to? Because say, if I'm sending an email, I don't get a reply. There's always one thing, my thought that I'll always refer back to. I've asked, I haven't got, but I've asked many other times and I have got, and I just firmly believe that the philosophy of just always asking, it doesn't harm to ask. Is there any particular saying that you have?
There was one actually that was it was a leadership training course I was on 10 years ago or so, but it stuck with me, and it's the story of WD-40, which is a random one, but the reason it's called WD-40 is because it was the 40th version of ingredients that created the product that worked. So it wasn't WD-1 or WD-2; it was 40 times later. There's a product; it now works. Now let's sell it. And I think that listening to that journey and that story shows you that you just don't give up. It's one of the most commonly bought products on the planet now in every single country. So but it took 39 other attempts to get it right.
That's quite. I didn't even know that. That is very.
Yeah,
That's eye
yeah.
opening because it links to your point about being resilient and always making, I guess, always persevering and constantly pushing against the door, essentially. And in terms of just on that topic of the challenging ones, if we reverse it now and we go the opposite way, what do you think your biggest success has been? Because like, I meet a lot of people and they don't define it as success. They're always trying to continue on, but I feel like it's you at some point you have to take a look back and just think, what have I achieved so far? It's not just about continuously pushing, but also take some credit for yourself as well.
I think probably so far the biggest success in, if I think about money particularly, has definitely been the team of people that we pulled together. We've got a fantastic group of probably 18, 19 people now working in different parts of the business. We've got a tech business. We have a foundation that works with schools. We have a business that works with corporates. We're creating a business now that's going to offer products to people to help them navigate the journey a little bit easier. And I think the people involved in the business are just incredible people. We've chosen people that would fit the ethos, fit the personality, the persona, and all want to work together on the same team and just run through brick walls together. And that's definitely the biggest success we've had is getting the right characters around the table at the right time.
Within the team, as the CEO yourself, what are your best tips of actually being a leader and actually managing a team? Is there any particular ways that you look at it?
Yeah, I think communication is absolute key. I've said this a few times before in podcasts that I've been on, that I think if you communicate clearly and if you communicate honestly and transparently a lot of the time, and it doesn't need to get to a point where there's cloak and dagger meetings or there's tension. I just think really honest, clear communication, whether it's positive or negative, I think is really, really important. Because what that leads to is another C, which is clarity. And I think that when there's a lack of clarity, you don't achieve the goals that you've set out to achieve because you've not got it written down exactly what it is you want to get from that meeting or that phone call or that workshop. So I think that always start off with clear communication because that will lead them to clarity. That's definitely one of the things that we're really focused on.
I guess that links really well into actually team morale because what I've found through the Young Enterprise program, I originally started as finance director and then went into the managing director. So that was quite interesting, but I guess it's about creating a sense where it's okay for you to make mistakes. You can be honest about it, and we're always you're
Yeah,
on a journey together because you're in the same business. You want the same goals. It's just about pushing on and just creating that environment where you can actually empower your team members to try new things, develop their skills. It's okay to make mistakes because we can learn. I think that's an amazing thing
absolutely.
about the Young Enterprise program because we, as a charity, it allows you to run a business for a year, and the drastic amount of skills that have developed over this year have been transformative. And now we've got Monito, which is continuously carrying on. And I just wanted to go back to the business of money. I nearly said movie again there. In terms of that business, you mentioned about your different departments, and what I found very interesting is the new AI that you have coming out. Is there any is there any tips you could give about that and why you've actually chose to go with that? Because we find that very interesting, especially as we've seen this massive movement of all these new AIs coming in now to make working life easier, but it also creates this sense of scare with people because of how developed they've become.
Yeah, so I'm not a technical person, so I don't proclaim to be, which is why we've got five superb tech guys that work within the structure. But one of the things that we discussed quite early on was that, if we're going to sit in front of people, we can sit in front of, say, 20 people. We can deliver a webinar or a workshop. We've got one this afternoon with, I think, 24 people booked on. So that's great. That's 24 people that have been helped and 24 people that can take that skill away and hopefully be financially empowered. But to scale that to help 60 million people in the UK or to help 30, 40 million people in Canada, which we're also working on, or the US or Australia, to start helping as many people as we want to help, you can't do that by standing in front of them. There has to be different ways of delivering that information. Plus, not everyone learns in the same way. You think to your time in school and college, and different people would teach in different methods and different ways. So sometimes people don't want to sit and listen to someone talk for 2 hours. That's not the way they're going to learn. They'd much rather be interacting with something and getting feedback from something. So what we've developed is a tool that's going to be launched hopefully September, so only a few weeks away. It's an AI money coach, and we think it's going to revolutionise the way people learn about the things they can do with money. There's 4 or 5 key modules that it's been trained upon. So it's not going to be giving financial advice or regulated advice, but it is going to be giving money coaching and tips and hints and really support people and empower them to communicate with their creditors better. That's one area that we've seen, especially with the background in debt management like I have. People are scared of talking to creditors. They're scared of lifting their head out the sand and discussing their situation with a bank or a credit card company or a mortgage company. So what we've developed is an AI tool that will help them with that communication and essentially be a crutch, if you like, to guide them through the process of communicating with creditors.
Such a smart point because as you basically try to broaden your horizons and access to more people, you've got to understand as well people can't always attend these in-person events. And we see so many, particularly in the change because of lockdown, a lot of virtual things now.
Yeah,
So I feel like an AI makes it so much more accessible. But then linking back to money, if we could just speak more about your background in the financial sector, because many people we see a lot of the time in the current climate, a lot of people selling these online courses, and it's particularly we see it when we do research into people selling these online courses, but they haven't actually achieved the money themselves or have been in the experience. But it's a lot different with money because you've all had financial background, you've seen the ups and downs, and now you're just trying to empower people. you'd like to just expand more on your background.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the team itself, first of all, everyone that delivers training is financially qualified in their discipline, whether that's mortgages, insurance, debt advice, an IFA, pensions, investments. So we've got people in the team when they're delivering the training, it's from a qualified perspective. My personal background, I started in finance when I was 16, so a long, long time ago, 2023 to be precise. And I started off in car finance and underwriting for car loans. That's where I started, and it really grew from there. I worked within debt advice for 7 or 8 years, where we had personal insolvency, bankruptcy, trust deeds. So that that sort of the real negative side of finance and money, and then was a qualified mortgage advisor, working with people looking at insurances, mortgages, secured loans, bridging loans, etc. So really working with individuals to support them through the process, and through my time at probably one of the largest financial companies in the country in terms of personal finance, Think Money, and spent 8, 9 years there. Worked across banking, insurance, mortgages, debt, the whole the whole shooting match ultimately. And that's helped us get a real understanding of where the gaps are, because we see it every day of the week. We saw every call we had with a customer, we could understand where did it go wrong. Where's the gap in their knowledge that's led them to a point where they're now in debt. Sometimes it's a lack of education, sometimes it's poor decisions, sometimes it's circumstance changing. But understanding that has helped us then create a training plan that people can go through to become more financially confident and more financially empowered.
What was the most eye-opening thing you found about working in these different financial sectors, I guess, because you've been through literally most of it. What was the most, if you could choose one point, it may be more than one point, what was the most eye-opening thing you found?
No, I've got one that stands out straight away, and it's the lack of communication between partners when financial stress starts to come through. So there've been many times I've been on a phone call with a client, and their partner would be downstairs, they'd be upstairs whispering because their partner doesn't know they've got these credit cards. And for me, that blew my mind because I'd always had fairly open dialogue about finances with my wife. So to think that there's people out there that are hiding, that level of debt from people that they live with, that was really difficult to understand at first because I couldn't relate to it. But then when you actually start thinking about it and putting yourself in their shoes, that means that every time their phone rings, they're scared about who it is. Every time the postman delivers something, they're scared about who it is. When the notification comes through on email, they're scared about who it is. So it could look like to the partner there's something a bit more going on. There's an affair going on, but ultimately it's not. They're actually just hiding credit cards from them. So one of the big things we try and teach is about communication with your partner. If you've got debt, credit cards, mortgages, loans that they don't know about, there needs to be a conversation there to again just work as a team. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that was an eye opener for me, is that there's a lot of people out there that aren't in that situation.
How do you, in your programs, how do you suggest to bridge this gap? Because I've heard people with stories before where they haven't told, and then it's been a massive shock to the other partner when they've realised it's like opening the can of worms essentially, because they've realised it's such a late stage, and then there's a limited amount they can actually do. Then what was your best tip that you provide in your programs for that?
It's the fact that there's a solution for every problem. So there is not a financial problem that cannot be resolved in some way. Now it may be that you're right at the end of the process and bankruptcy is the only option. That isn't as scary as it sounds for a lot of people. It's a process. A friend of mine went bankrupt sort of 10 years ago. He's absolutely fine now. He's not destitute for life. So I think that one of the biggest things we try and create, we've got a workshop called Debt Solutions where we go through the pros and cons of each solution that's out there. There's 10 in the UK, and we just talk about them really openly and key facts. No scare tactics, no kind of scary headlines. Just here's what this does, here's what it doesn't do, and here are the impacts of these particular products.
We see now in the cost of living crisis, though, there's so many people who actually don't understand the finances, and that's the main reason why we partnered with Step Change, because they help people understand their finances as a charity. But also, when we went to the European finals, we did so much research into this, and it's a staggering stat that only 52% of adults in the entire Europe have the basic financial skills they need to live in the current climate. And for companies exactly like Mooney, it ties in, and it's clear why you've had the growth because you mentioned you've been in Canada, the US, and I'm sure there's many more. But it's clear because there's an information failure, I believe, that there's just not enough of it provided, and you're basically as bridging the gap, and that's why we think it's amazing. But linking back to yourself personally, you transitioned from a 9 to 5 working constantly into becoming a CEO, founder of Money. How have you felt that? How have you found that change, and what has been the major differences and I guess the similarities with that?
The major difference is not 9 to 5 now; it's 5 to 9. It starts very early and goes right the way through. So, I think that's one of the things that when I think about earlier, I said don't being resilient and not giving up. That can be in the day. Doesn't mean big picture overall. It can be that some days you think I'm not sure I can do it today. I feel a bit tired or a bit under the weather. But ultimately, if you're the driving force behind a particular business or project, you have to deliver. You have to get up. You have to do it. So, there's no sick days. There's no duvet days. It's a case of getting up every day and delivering what needs to be delivered. And the other side of it is that the people that are working within the structure, the 18 or 19 people, that what they're working towards is a vision that I have to keep creating and keep alive. If I don't keep that vision alive, and then their motivations will drop. They're working towards something that we've all discussed. We've got a big picture plan, a strategy of how Money Group will flourish and continue to grow. Vision is something that we have to continually talk about, revisit, and adapt. Sometimes it has to adapt because your plans can't always stay the same.
You mentioned about your longer hours, your 5 to 9. How do you manage your time as a CEO now? Because I hear many people mention about time is very valuable, particularly when you're speaking to different clients and stuff. How do you manage that effectively? So essentially, you're not. I don't like to say this phrase, but your time's not getting wasted. Because like myself, I like to say yes to a lot of people, but then I guess there has to be the balance where sometimes you have to say no and step away from that situation.
Yeah, I'm not good at that, to be honest. I'm not very good at saying no. I say yes to a lot of stuff. One of my business partners, when I text him sometimes, he goes, "Oh my God, what have you brought to the table now? Not another opportunity." A big thing is understanding the priorities of those opportunities, where that fits. How long a tail is that process? Is it going to be in 9 months' time? Okay, great. Let's put it on the shelf for now and let's focus on the here and now. And I think that's where the challenge of trying to build a team around you where you can then work on the business, not in it, which is a very well used phrase, is difficult. That's a hard transition to go from being in and part of everything, doing the invoicing and chasing clients up and biz development and delivering some training, which I'll be doing later on today, to then working on the strategy and working on the plans for the business. Trying to transition from in to on is a real challenge that I'm right in the middle of. That might never be something that you master. That might be something that I'm always in the middle of transitioning with, but we'll see.
I guess it's always a learning curve whenever you're in a business. Like I'm not gonna say I know nothing. I've just registered Monito and I've just found out a bunch of new things that I found out about, and it's always about learning. And then in terms of when you obviously get to a higher position like yourself as a CEO, is there any particular tips when it comes to networking? Do you believe in it in the business world, or is there any particular suggestions you have?
Absolutely, yeah. Network is 100% one of the things that has helped us grow to a point very quickly. So, the 5 tech guys that are part of the structure are all people that I've met through networking. The people involved in delivering, the people that I've worked with for 15 years that I've met through networking. So, I've done a few different types. I've done the really formal networking like BNI and Real Five, and a few different structures where you go to a business meeting once a week and you do your sort of 60-second stand up and talk about your business. So I've done a lot of that. And I've done a lot of just informal networking, just at events, webinars, conferences, seminars, etc. But for me, I think that networking is so important. You need to have a black book filled with names and numbers that you can call upon, that you can lean on, that you can leverage, that you can talk to, get advice from, learn from. I think to be closed off, it makes it very difficult to grow and it's difficult to diversify. So, I wish I'd known that earlier. I didn't start doing that till I was probably 25, 26, probably. If I was your age doing networking networking events, I think it made a massive difference because you know more people, and also what you're doing at your age is so impressive that it stands out. So people will remember you and remember what you're doing. So I think that networking for you is a massive thing to jump into 2-footed.
Take that on board because I've realised, obviously, do through the podcast as well, speak to these different people. There's always
Mm.
someone you can learn off, and in particular with
Yeah.
networking, is there a particular mindset that you suggest when you approach these people, or is it just more be yourself, just reflect yourself in the best manner you can?
Number one is be yourself, definitely. But number two is don't sell. So don't sell your services. Don't come across like a hunter. You need to sort of learn about their business, learn about what they want, learn about what they're doing, and see if you can help them. If you help them, the more likely to want to help you. And I think that's probably one of the things that I learned quite quickly was that if I go into a room and just start selling what we do, people are going to turn off. I'm not interested in this guy. He's just trying to sell his services. Whereas if you try and learn about their businesses and how you can help them, your network naturally starts to grow very quickly because you're known as someone that is very helpful, he's very amenable, he's good at putting people together, a good connector of people, and it all comes around. It comes 360, and you start to get that back very quickly.
It's like a circle, essentially. I understand. So it's like creating what I've found through learning. It's like you're creating a healthy environment around you where you can get support from these people, but you've actually built connections where they'll come to you as well. And it's just the essence of helping each other in the business world. And then spinning it back now,
Yeah.
if you just put our goggles on as a entrepreneur here, you've been very experienced in it. So pitching your business. What has been your approach to it, and what are your best tips for someone, say, at the stage of Manito just starting up to pitch their business to other people?
So focus on the outcomes you deliver. I think is probably the biggest thing. So people know that Money deliver financial education. People know that we deliver webinars, workshops. People know what we deliver, but we really have to focus on the outcomes. And the outcomes are happier people, more confident people, more empowered people. And if we can apply some hard data to that, which we do, and we can apply some evidence to that, then we are showing people that what we deliver are these outcomes. How we deliver them, they're not really interested in because that's our product or service. They want to know what the outcome is of having money in to help. So with Manito, focus on what it is that you deliver. What are the outcomes that you deliver to the schools that you work with or the organizations that you work with? And if you focus on the outcomes, then the process will follow itself.
Exactly. So focusing on that, I'm gonna take that advice with me, 100%, because I need to, as we grow, and you said the resilience. This podcast as well. People have to remember I'm 16 to the youth orientation perspective, so I'm still learning at the same
Yeah,
time. So it's great for
yeah.
me. And then in terms of presenting, it can be very daunting. I realized at the start of the Young Enterprise Program, when I did my first one, I just jelly legs and I just forgot everything. It's just how do you cope with that? Is there a coping way, or is it just you find people who just don't
um,
get it, or is it just preparation for
to,
you?
to initially preparation. So if you were to interview my wife, she would say that I used to bore her by presenting to her. At night she'd be lying in bed with a book, and I'd be up end of the bed, stood there delivering a presentation to her with PowerPoint on my laptop, which sounds very sad when I say it out loud. But that meant that when I went in the next day to deliver it, I'd done it 4 times the night before, and I knew which bits to say the right lines and where to deliver it, where to lift up the energy. So I delivered it already. Pretty cutting feedback from the missus. So preparation was key to start with. And then as time's gone on, what I would say is just knowing what it is you're delivering. Having being a subject matter expert, being an expert on the material you're delivering is key because then you can roll with the punches, you can engage people in the room, you can bring people into the conversation, and it might go a little bit off piste, but you're able to handle that because you've got the knowledge to handle it. First of all, you might start being quite scripted, quite robotic because you want to get the information out that you've practiced and you've prepped. But over time, you're able to be a little bit more fluid, a bit more natural with it, and take the punches as they come. So, I think that delivering information to people is all about prep to start with, and then confidence will come from the prep that you've done.
Summarizes it, just preparing. And then if you prepare, I found that with the Europeans, once you prepare and you know your business inside out, essentially anything that comes at you, you've it's basically already processed in your head. You know what you're going to say to it. And it just, that's what calmed my nerves the most, to be honest. I remember that. Very, it was a very good experience with the Young Enterprise program because as your skills developed, it's like you got less and less and less nervous. But looking at
Yeah.
it now, if we take a whole business, this might be a challenge, or it might be one of the words you said previously. If there was one word or like one key skill you'd say to an entrepreneur now, someone just starting up their business, what would it be? Would it just be resilience, or is there another key skill that you'd say they should have?
No, I quite like the C words, so not the one that you think. I quite like communication, clarity, and then collaboration. So I think that if you can collaborate and that comes through your networking that you've done, it makes a massive difference. You know, the people that are sat at the table at Money Group, you know, the co-founders, there's, like I say, there's a group of people involved. All of that has just been through pure collaboration. There's not one person that feels like or is, you know, ahead of everyone else. Everyone's collaborating to make this work. So, from my perspective, if you're thinking about setting a business up, if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, if you're doing what you're doing, for example, yes, resilience is massively important. Being passionate about something is massively important, but you also need a team around you. I think collaborating is huge.
So the three C's, that's what I'm going to call it, the three C's. So three C's you need to know. Perfect. And then just to finish off the episode, we do this with all our guests. Is there a particular role model that influences you and I guess the upcoming of you from the working life to become the CEO of such a brilliant business?
It's a really tough question. I mean, my natural reaction is to go down the football route, and Sir Alex Ferguson being one of my all-time heroes as a United fan. Not very business related, but certainly from a leadership perspective, and you know, and taking the bull by the horns and being passionate about something. I think it's hard to sort of move away from that. But then, from a professional perspective, there's been a couple of people in my working career that have been really influential in the work that they've done and what I've learned from them as individuals. I think about when I first started out, there's a chap called David Hyland that's one of the directors at so I think, well, they were called Blemain was the overarching company, but he was my first ever sort of boss and my first ever mentor, really. Philip Robertson was the chap that I set up Smart Lolly with and still speak to today, and he's a fantastic guy that I learned a lot from. And there's been several others along the way that I've taken the best bits from when I've come across them. I think that's really important. I think you've got to be yourself, but there's also people that have trodden a path already. So what bits can you take from their approach or the way that they do things, and can you apply to yourself? And that's what it's all about, really.
If you could pick one of them and just share what in particular influenced from them to you in the current way you are now.
I would say Phil. Yeah, I think so. Phil Robertson, who was director of well-being at Think Money, the way that he approached everything was super collaborative. He was a great communicator, had a great presence, and every single person that ever encountered him only had positive words to say. I think that that's something that I am quite passionate about. I'm passionate about my perception, so I don't want to be perceived as someone that's negative or someone that's doing something incorrect. You know, I've been really focused on doing the right thing as much as possible, and something that Phil always did and always still does. So yeah, I would say Phil.
So insightful just hearing different role models and everyone has a role model these days and how much they can actually have an influence. I think this episode's been amazing. Just like to say a massive thank you for you to actually coming on and sharing all this knowledge about entrepreneurship and your great business and money. I've said it correct there. And then moving on, I just wanted to ask one more little question. What's the future
Go for
plan
it.
for money? Is it any specific aim that you have? A little insight, little sneak peek into something, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the AI tool getting launched next month is huge for us. It's in the final stages of testing. It's, you know, I was on it last night and I just can't believe where it's got to so quickly. So that's really exciting. But one of the biggest things we're focusing on is the fact that there is a financial literacy gap globally. It's not just a UK problem. I mentioned Canada, I mentioned the US, South Africa, Australia, there, Philippines. There's 5 territories that we're currently chatting to about launching money in those territories. And listing the work we've done and just repurposing it and making sure it's you know in that exchange rates and all the things that we need to do and the regulations in those countries. But that's for me the big plan. The big picture is Money Group having presence globally, ultimately.
All of you, will sure will be seeing money in your life soon. I'm gonna make a bold statement then, guarantee that, just because of how we've seen how much it is and how much it covers and how amazing it is. And that has been a very insightful episode. Hopefully, that's been an insightful episode for you viewers as well. So that has been episode 10 of the Money Smart podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next episode.